guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called Being a Maid is Better Than Being a Princess. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! Before we get started, I also want to warn our viewers that this manhwa contains descriptions and illustrations of domestic violence at the start of the story. For anyone who might find this triggering, please proceed with caution. On a perfect sunny day, with the birds clear chirping, leaves shimmering with morning dew, and the warm morning sunlight streaming through the clear clouds, the maids rejoice once their tasks are finally over. One of the maids complains about too much laundry and says that her arms are already aching. Another maid shows off her muscles, which are starting to shape thicker than the blacksmith's. Momentarily, they all decide to take a break for a while. Meanwhile, a maid with blonde hair just quietly observes her coworkers. Before we proceed, I have a question. Have you ever pondered the backstory of someone? Wondering what events led them to their current circumstances? If so, let's delve into the life journey of this quiet blonde maid and uncover her story. Up until just a few months ago, this maid was living the life of a princess. Cianna Asylond von Silité was born into royalty as the princess of a small kingdom. She anticipated a life filled with happiness and love, like any typical princess, until tragedy struck with the passing of her mother when she was only 10 years old. And her father swiftly remarried following her mother's passing, introducing a new queen into their lives. Despite grappling with loneliness and deeply missing her mother, she made every effort to fulfill her duties as a loyal princess to her new family. Meanwhile, the new queen promises her father to transform his daughter into an elegant and beautiful princess on behalf of the former queen. However, this became her turning point as she endured mistreatment under the guise of education. The new queen reprimands Cianna and administers punishment for even the most minor mistakes. On one occasion, she threatens to use a whip to discipline her if she fails to greet properly. And for the 100th time, she follows through with her threat. Furthermore, they force her to wear an extremely tight corset that nearly suffocates her, along with a dress that feels overwhelmingly heavy. Yet such treatment is considered a normal thing for a princess of the kingdom. After Cianna's greeting to the guests failed to meet the new queen's expectations, she punished her by confining her in a dark room. Additionally, she repeatedly scolded the princess, accusing her of not presenting herself profoundly in front of His Majesty. Just as the queen is about to administer the whip to the princess, His Majesty unexpectedly arrives and catches her in the act. While she attempts to explain, the princess pleads for her father to intervene and save her. However, he merely tolerates the misconduct and even agrees to scold her if she doesn't improve her behavior. What kind of father is he? Afterwards, Cianna begins to hold herself responsible for every misfortune. She had merely endeavored to embody the ideal princess for their family. However, after enduring repeated abuse, all she desires is to disappear. That was her wish, but she never thought it would actually happen. When she was 18, the castle fell to the Imperial army in half a day, and they conquered the continent. The crown prince of the Lebanon Empire, Rashid Lebanon de Ajane, or what they call the Bloody Prince, came personally to the castle. He arrived to witness Cianna's father's surrender. However, due to his pride, her father chose death over begging for mercy from the invaders. In his capacity as the Bloody Prince, Rashid promptly executes him as per his wish. Meanwhile, the princess observes the disruptive scene unfolding before her. As soon as Rashid comes her way, she immediately begs to spare her life. Although she didn't live a happy life, she doesn't want things to end this way. Cianna expresses her willingness to do anything for him as she continues to beg. The first thing that came to mind was for her to become his woman. However, she refuses, fully aware that she's not capable of that. In her perception of herself, she lacks seductiveness and gentle charms, so she is convinced that Rashid will not find her appealing. Nonetheless, she possesses good health and skills in embroidery and crafting fragrant tea. Hence, she firmly believes that serving as a maid would be a better fit for her. Cianna instantly regrets everything she said earlier. Eventually, he permits her to work as a maid in the Imperial palace. Soon after, he commands Sol, his right-hand man, to untie her. Gratefully, she expresses her appreciation to the crown prince for saving her. Finally, she finds solace in having survived this hell, feeling indebted to him for the rest of her life. And that is the story of how Cianna became a trainee maid for the Empire, from the princess of one nation to a maid in another one. Indeed, it is a completely different world from back when she was a princess. For her, being a maid is much more fun and comfortable. She can live like this for the rest of her life and she wouldn't complain. Just when she's happily doing her tasks, Jeannie, an apprentice maid, interrupts her. She tends to be a hostile individual, frequently instigating conflict with her. Even when Cianna is just quietly doing her own thing, Jeannie consistently finds fault with her. Fortunately, just before the situation escalates further, Choo-Choo, another apprentice maid, arrives. She reprimands Jeannie for trying to start a fight with Cianna and warns her of potential consequences, even threatening to report her behavior to the senior maids. With that, she walks away along with her allies. After that, Choo-Choo advises Cianna to fight back and not just take their hits. Those other maids are probably bothering her more because she's quiet. However, she doesn't seem bothered by it. For the former princess who was abused by the queen all her life while growing up, such grumpiness was nothing for her. Moreover, considering that girl's family, it's not easy to go against her. Personally, I wouldn't let that slide. Since Jeannie is the daughter of a great merchant who is recognized in the Empire, it's no surprise that she'll be an official maid no matter what she does. The other maids even follow her around just because they want to get something out of it. A kid like her who fails to perform her duties adequately can advance simply by relying on others to support her. If this is indeed the reality, then the world is truly in a sorry state. Choo-Choo, who is an apprentice maid just like the others, is expected to be a promising talent among the maids, especially because of her size and strength. Meanwhile, Cianna doesn't have any kind of backup. She can't guarantee that she'll become an official maid. On another note, there must be someone who will help her, given that she's a foreigner who came to the Imperial Palace as a trainee maid. The crown prince of this empire, Rashid, is the first person that comes to her mind. Which reminds her that maybe he saved her previously out of pity or amusement, so it likely holds no significance. With that in mind, she dismisses the thought of his assistance. Essentially, there's no one she can depend on. On the other hand, Rashid asks Sol about Cianna's current state. They know each other pretty well since they grew up together when they were still young. He proceeds to share all the details he has gathered about her and her well-being in the palace. Shortly, he can't help but notice his evident concern for her, prompting him to ask about it. Rashid explains that he simply feels remorseful for killing her family and destroying their country. Nonetheless, Sol remains skeptical. He knows his weaknesses, particularly towards girls like Cianna. Petite, big-eyed, and seemingly harmless. So that means Cianna is his type. He expresses his desire for Cianna to become an official maid and be assigned to a favorable position. From this, Sol infers that he's requesting him to watch over her. However, he explains that she's still a trainee and hasn't proven her abilities yet, so she can't be promoted. Well, that's correct. Rashid proceeds to propose a solution, suggesting evaluating her capabilities to determine if she has the potential to become an official maid. While the maids are eating in the palace, Cianna feels happy because she can eat however she wants without any worry. Shortly, Jeannie comes by just to bully her for no reason. However, she receives no reaction from her, which upsets her even more. I feel like she's not getting the attention she deserves, you know? Momentarily, the head maid of apprentices arrives. She instantly figures out that the girls have been fighting. Luckily, she doesn't pay it much mind as long as their quarrel doesn't lead to any trouble for her. Aside from that, she announces the sudden notice from the higher-ups. There will be a tea party in a few days, and they want the apprentice maids to greet the guests when they walk in. Moreover, she explains that when serving people, strict etiquette rules must be followed, and mistakes shouldn't be made. This is usually a role that the best apprentice maids get. With that, everyone starts to get excited. However, as soon as they learn that the guests are the individuals responsible for growing the fruit supplied to the Imperial Palace, their expressions change. Actually, the tea party serves as an appreciation for these individuals, acknowledging and commending their hard work. Until the event takes place, training will be held. Later on, the maids openly express their disappointment. Admittedly, they are reluctant to serve these individuals because, in their eyes, they're just ordinary people. The next morning, they start their training, led by the head maid of apprentices. She is quite strict, which is normal given that they are representing the royal family's name. Choo-Choo seems to be the most excited among everyone. She is determined to do well, but unfortunately, passion and skills do not always go together. Despite doing her best, she keeps making mistakes when pouring tea. When Jeannie's turn comes, the head maid commends her for doing well. She then subtly boasts that she was taught by the town's most famous etiquette teacher before. For her, she wants to become a head maid and serve the Empress, thus she is keen on showing off her skills. As an apprentice maid, the best of the best are chosen carefully. Back in Cianna's household, the minute they made a mistake, the queen will punish them right away. With this in mind, they serve tea with the utmost composure, aiming to avoid irritating the queen in any way. But compared to that, everyone around is too clumsy. As soon as it's her turn, she is motivated to do her best. In her mind, she doesn't want to stand out by doing something unnecessary. Everyone seems excited because they are going to greet the guests for the first time, but after the training in the mornings, they need to return to their assigned places and finish their tasks. At the end of the day, snacks are provided for the hungry apprentice maids. Momentarily, Cianna notices something off. She checks up on Choo-Choo since she seems to be quiet today, which is unusual. Perhaps it's because she got scolded the most during the tea lesson today, leaving her feeling dispirited. It's the first time she's encountered such difficulty with something. This might just be her very first taste of a real struggle. Although it's upsetting for Choo-Choo, it is true that she's never experienced drinking tea and the like. Also, she doesn't have the ability to be good at something after only learning it for a while. While Cianna is listening, she realizes that the only person who stands beside her is Choo-Choo, who's also a maid like her. With that, she offers to give her special training. Essentially, they are going to practice every day during break. By doing so, she will definitely improve her skills. Upon hearing this, she becomes hyped. Since then, they plan to do their special training every night. After dinner in the maid's kitchen, Cianna teaches Choo-Choo the proper process of making tea and pouring it. Although the process itself is not hard to learn, it takes a lot of practice to master it. And so they persist in practicing diligently. Gradually, her progress becomes apparent as she executes the steps flawlessly this time. In response, Cianna praises her for her remarkable improvement. Choo-Choo expresses gratitude, acknowledging that her progress is owed to Cianna's guidance. As they continue practicing together, their bond grows much stronger than it was before. Later on, they start talking about their personal lives. Choo-Choo came from a mine village in the east, and her father is a miner. However, he has to feed all his 13 kids, so he always works without any rest. Despite their lively and close-knit family, they struggle to make ends meet. Wanting to contribute, she applied to become a maid and found herself in the Imperial Palace. Additionally, becoming an official maid means earning a decent wage, so that's her goal. After sharing her story, she asks about Cianna's backstory as well. Given that she comes from abroad, she must have a more complicated situation than hers. Before saying anything, she carefully thinks things through, contemplating whether to tell the truth or not. However, if she says that she's a former princess, it might make things more complicated. In the end, she explains how the crown prince assigned her as a maid himself. Choo-Choo couldn't believe that she was able to meet the infamous bloody prince in person. Rumors say that his face is more beautiful than a sculpture. Indeed, the rumors are true. His features are unrealistically beautiful. However, contrary to his outward appearance, he is very cruel. Cianna is on the verge of revealing that he was responsible for the deaths of her entire family. Eventually, she decides to tell her the truth. Since that day, Choo-Choo's actions towards her have completely changed, in a good way. Her resentment towards the crown prince is quite obvious. Although she feels quite guilty for making her hate him, it's a nice feeling to have someone by her side. Aw, their friendship is so cute. If the crown prince is truly a bad person, then he must hear curses a lot of times on a daily basis. Speaking of which, while Sol hands him a letter from Baroness Appleton, Rashid's ears feel itchy all of a sudden. There's a superstition in the Empire that if one's ears are itchy, someone is talking behind their back. If that's the case, then his ears will be burning up non-stop, like all year long. Going back to Appleton, Sol figures out that Rashid is trying to test Cianna with the apple, which seems like his favorite. Coincidentally, Baroness Appleton is happy to attend the tea party that will be held the next day. The day of the tea party arrives, and the apprentice maids are busier than usual. Each of them is busy cleaning and designing the venue. Momentarily, some of the maids hear about Baroness Appleton being one of the guests. With that, they seem to get excited to impress the noble more. Jeannie shows up looking beautiful with makeup on, ready to make an impression. Meanwhile, Choo-Choo feels a bit envious and wants to look pretty. Cianna then assures her, certain that both of them will do great. When the front gates open and the guests enter, the maids welcome them with greetings. The lady workers seem to be in awe after witnessing the beautiful Imperial Palace. When the greetings are over, the maids escort their guests to their tables. However, Jeannie, who is waiting for Baroness Appleton, refuses to serve the other guests. The tea party begins only when all guests arrive. Shortly after, the protagonist, whom everyone was waiting for, finally arrives. Instantaneously, Jeannie greets her with enthusiasm as she guides her to her designated table. Oh, wow! The Baroness appears to be more elegant than expected! All of a sudden, Cianna notices the maid's whispering. An old woman who seems to be the last guest arrives. Unlike the others, she's the only one who willingly greets her. She then escorts the old woman to her designated table. Now that all the guests are seated, the tea party finally begins. The guests are all in awe to be able to attend such an event. It's truly such an honor for them to be invited. Later on, the dessert is served. It's a famous chocolate made from cacao from Cianna. Upon tasting it, they are all astonished by its sweet and distinct flavor. Meanwhile, the old woman tries to taste it. Cianna then watches her closely, waiting for a reaction. Will she enjoy it? After noticing that the old woman has some chocolate dirt on her face, Cianna comes to her and offers to clean it. However, she seems embarrassed as she quickly turns her back away. Meanwhile, the other guests request some handkerchiefs. Admittedly, they momentarily lost composure due to the tasty chocolate they served. Now they start feeling embarrassed, particularly as they perceive themselves as mere country dwellers rather than noble ladies and princesses. For Cianna, all of them are precious guests in her eyes. She tells them to enjoy the party peacefully as she offers them tea from time to time. Upon taking a sip of the tea, they don't experience the excitement they felt with the chocolate. There's a saying that one must regularly indulge in fine things to appreciate them fully. With that in mind, Jeannie promptly approaches Baroness Appleton. Although she is the owner of the orchard, she has never visited the place even once. That's why the other guests don't recognize her. Indeed, she is beautiful in person. Cianna thinks if someone makes her mad, the tea party will turn into chaos. With confidence and a bit of arrogance, Jeannie serves Baroness Appleton chocolate. However, that escalated quickly because she seemed to notice her attitude. It turns out that the noble lady has been enduring her arrogant greetings and judgmental gaze since the beginning. Moreover, she gets criticized for her tea-pouring skills. The Baroness couldn't tolerate this rudeness any longer. I think she deserves it. Anxiously, Jeannie makes another attempt to pour her tea, yet Baroness Appleton still appears dissatisfied. It's known that a maid who fails to perform her duties properly will face severe punishment. With that said, she contemplates the punishment she intends to give. But before she makes a decision, Cianna interrupts and apologizes quickly. She takes accountability for Jeannie's mistakes. Because of their inadequate skills, they fail to meet the standards expected of a noble lady. She continues to plead for forgiveness on their behalf. True to her character, Baroness Appleton proves to be a challenging person to satisfy. It takes Cianna some time to persuade her. As a maid, she simply makes a modest request to improve the guest experience. Fortunately, she agrees eventually. However, if they fail to meet her expectations, the anger previously directed at Jeannie will now be directed at Cianna instead. This reminds her of her past. Before, she was taught how to make tea while other nobles were watching her. Their eyes looked like those of wild animals looking at its prey. The moment where even the smallest mistake was not tolerated. It's truly a life and death matter! How scary! Presently, Cianna reminds herself that her priority is to serve Baroness Appleton attentively. With that in mind, she presents a cup of Earl Grey tea from Ingrid and offers it to her with proper etiquette. Tea leaves play an important role in defining the taste of black tea. The selection of raw materials is vital, as is the precise amount used, since there's no way to gauge it accurately without a scale, which could result in the tea being too bitter or too bland. Additionally, the spoon shouldn't be overfilled, and the servant must ensure that the tea leaves are evenly spread without any clumps. Once brewed at the correct temperature and for the right amount of time, the tea is ready to be served. Cianna then introduces the Earl Grey tea from Ingrid to the Baroness. With a sharp glance, the Baroness subtly nods in approval. Cianna gracefully raises the kettle, allowing the aroma to mingle with the air, being careful not to splash any liquid into the glass, thereby enriching the fragrance. With a gentle motion, Cianna achieves the perfect balance of water temperature and tea leaves. She then asks the Baroness to inform her if the taste doesn't meet her expectations, understanding that taste is subjective. Despite the quality of the tea leaves and the brewing process, if it doesn't suit the Baroness's taste, they could all be in danger. Fortunately, the Baroness finds it splendid and even requests Cianna to assist her whenever needed. That afternoon, the guests returned to their residences safely, concluding the tea party, which had been filled with tension and excitement without any issues. Before departing, the guests expressed their gratitude to Cianna for ensuring a peaceful tea party without causing any discomfort to the Baroness. However, Cianna senses that the elderly woman is hesitant about something. Consequently, she inquires if there's anything the Baroness wishes to discuss. The old lady confesses her fear of encountering criticism at the Imperial Palace due to her appearance, but mustered the courage to attend. Cianna's unexpected actions made the day enjoyable, creating the most memorable experience of the Baroness's life. Although Cianna is aware that traditionally, servants are expected to maintain a polite demeanor without displaying personal emotions, she finds it challenging to contain her happiness at serving such a precious guest. Unbeknownst to her, the Baroness observes Cianna from a distance behind the pillars. Once the tea party concludes, the maids resume their daily routines, from preparing banquets early in the morning to cleaning up until sunset. Life as an apprentice maid is undoubtedly demanding due to the workload, but Cianna finds solace in leftovers. As she discusses the day with Choo-Choo, two other maids approach her, praising her earlier actions and asking her to teach them how to serve tea. Cianna is pleasantly surprised by their change in attitude, yet Jeannie's demeanor remains unchanged as she continues to mock Cianna's foreign origins from a kingdom in ruin. I swear, this girl has no shame left on her. This time, the other maids stand for Cianna, reminding how Cianna took care of Jeannie's clumsiness. Jeannie trembles in embarrassment and leaves. The other maids then talk about how the Baroness was indeed on a different level than the other guests. Cianna notices it too. It wasn't just her posture. Every aspect of her, from her walk to her movements while sipping tea, exuded dignity, a presence that transcended mere nobility. That night, in the Imperial Palace, Sol notices someone walking in the hallway and was surprised to see the Baroness. And so he reminds her not to keep coming like a sharp knife to the Crown Prince's room in order to avoid issues. What? Does this mean she is his sister? They kinda look alike too. With such a strict etiquette, almost like that of a princess, Cianna can't help but to shrug off the thought of the Baroness as someone related to the Imperial family. In the Imperial Palace, the Baroness starts emitting such dark energy the moment Sol judges how weird of a man Rashid is, who looks fine on the outside but only thinks about the soft soles of a squirrel's feet. Still, the Baroness asks him to go on, but Sol knows that he'd be in great danger if he will. And so, the Baroness proceeds to go inside and greets Rashid's pets like her own. What? What's going on? Now I'm confused. It turns out that the Baroness is none other than Rashid himself. He bought magic stones worth more than a mansion just to dress up as a woman for half a day. Sol can't help but to think that he's crazy enough to do that. That's not the issue, Sol. With a body and a face like that, I don't know how to recover from here. Even so, Sol then asks if Cianna met his expectations. I don't even know how Sol manages to put up a straight face after seeing that body. But Rashid is pretty honest enough to admit that she, in fact, exceeded his expectations. It won't be easy for someone who was a princess just a few months ago to replicate the etiquette of a maid. However, Cianna's position of the arm, the shape of the hand holding the teapot, and a face that lowers its head weakly to avoid eye contact makes her unbelievably perfect, as if things written in the etiquette book have been replaced. And so, Cianna's grace can't be concealed even in a maid's uniform, so he finds it fun to observe her. Sol is now positive that Rashid is indeed crazy. Even common sense doesn't apply to him. Even thought-provoking conversations with him have no sincerity. Like, for instance, he thinks that everything that isn't cute should die. Thank God I'm safe. Just kidding. Sol knows that Rashid is an extreme misanthropic, but thanks to him, he learns how to see people's intentions clearly. But it still doesn't mean that Rashid should find Cianna's situation funny. Also, bringing her to the palace as a maid is something way too much, especially that she's from a defeated country whom Rashid trampled down. Sol is furious that she may do something outrageous in the future as a revenge. However, Rashid already tested her abilities and finds Sol's thoughts impossible to happen. Meanwhile, as Cianna impresses the other maids with her embroidery skills, the head of the apprentice maids calls her, delivering the news that the Baroness wants to see her. Cianna can't help but to overthink if she made a mistake last time. However, as she enters the room, she is surprised to see the old woman introducing herself as Magdalena Appleton, the real Baroness. Even confused, she remembers that not once did the noble lady refer to herself as the Baroness of the entire tea party. She then apologizes immediately for mistaking the old lady as just some kind of an ordinary guest last time. Magdalena laughs because she is the one who chose to hide her identity, so Cianna has nothing to apologize for. When the Baroness received an invitation letter from the Imperial family to attend a tea party, she knew that it was an opportunity that may never come again. However, she was reluctant because of how she looks. In fact, she has been living in seclusion. She knew very well what kind of rumor would spread if she went to the tea party given her appearance. However, another letter came stating that she could keep her identity a secret. Magdalena grabbed this chance so no one would bother her at the tea party. However, Cianna approached her with her shining dignity. Magdalena was impressed with her, so from then on, she started studying etiquette, wanting how much she would like to be as elegant as Cianna. So this time, in that sense, Magdalena greets her in a more formal way, grateful for what Cianna did that day. Even though Magdalena's greeting isn't perfect, Cianna appreciates the warm feeling that the Baroness conveys to her. And even though it's just a greeting, it shows what kind of person Magdalena is. Cianna then realizes that Magdalena is a person who is loved and who has so much love to give. Oh, how nice it is to be loved and to be in love. After that, Cianna shares the apples to the other maids, who can only eat hard bread even if they work hard every day. As she takes a bite, she's impressed by how delicious it is. But she still can't shrug off the thought of the noble lady as a member of the Imperial family, given how she has the same silver hair and purple eyes as the crown prince. Wondering if she's really a princess who plays pranks on people just because she doesn't have any friends. That noble lady is the crown prince himself, and yes, he plays pranks on people because he doesn't have any friends. However, she is much more surprised that the head of the apprentice maids announces that she has been promoted to become an official maid. This puts Jeannie into beast mode, demanding for an explanation. Isn't it clear that she's just so full of herself when she can't even perform well in her job? The head maid makes it clear that the tea party was a test to see their abilities. And by that, they know very well who stood out the most on that day. And so the head apprentice maid instructs Cianna to serve a princess named Aris by tomorrow in the Ruby Palace. However, Cianna isn't happy about it, worried that others will surely hate her since they all worked so hard to be promoted as well. However, she's entirely wrong about it. Everyone congratulates her and are simply happy for everything she's done. Cianna forgot for a moment that these people are different from the ones she knew before. No, I'm so happy for her. She truly deserves the love she didn't receive from her parents. However, Jeannie is still bitter about it, but Choo-Choo puts her into her place so as not to speak any more nonsense. That's right. Go leave and tell your dad how incomparable you are to our lovely Cianna. That night, Choo-Choo enters Cianna's room, presenting her with a simple hairpin as a congratulatory gift for her promotion to official maid status. As Choo-Choo delicately places it in her hair, she offers words of encouragement, urging Cianna not to feel inferior in her new environment. Deeply touched, Cianna realizes that Choo-Choo purchased the hairpin with her own savings, prompting tears to well up in her eyes. She embraces Choo-Choo tightly, overwhelmed by her friend's kindness and the value she places on their friendship. Meanwhile, in another room, the head apprentice maid seeks confirmation regarding Princess Aris's maid. The other maid confirms her inability to endure the position any longer, asserting that undertaking petty tasks is much better than serving the princess. She goes on to declare that nobody within the Empire can endure serving Princess Aris. That morning, Cianna is ready to depart to the Ruby Palace. From a princess of a ruined kingdom to an official maid of the Empire, she vows to only walk on the flowery path. When conversing with the current maid of the princess, the maid reveals that the other maids ran away, and if she had a chance to do it, she would as well a long time ago. Cianna asks if the princess is very picky, but the maid says that it's not because the princess is picky, but because the princess is the most vicious devil in the Empire. I hope she's not as evil as Cianna's parents. She's been through a lot. A long time ago, the Emperor fell in love at first sight with a dancer named Rosemary, and gave her a small palace with a small garden connected to it as a dowry, which is the Ruby Palace. Their daughter, the 7th princess of the Empire, lives there. As soon as they enter the palace, she can sense how gloomy and messed up the halls are. The other maid knocks on the door, calling the princess to introduce Cianna to her. Before entering, Cianna is aware of the kind of treatment that's given to the princess, probably because she's a child mixed with low blood. To be able to grow up pretty and strong in such an environment is something that only happens in fairy tales. As soon as the door opens, the other maid faints at the sight of a spider in front of her. Excuse me? Are you telling me that this messy-looking kid is a princess? She looks like a girl living on the streets. The princess then asks Cianna why she has no reactions. Cianna apologizes, and after taking a deep breath, she screams in horror, and right after, she asks if she can now introduce herself. You know what, guys? I didn't know Cianna has a funny side either. The princess is surprised as to Cianna's reaction. She knows that it was just scripted and that she isn't really scared of her pranks. And so the princess asks her to leave because she's no fun and that she doesn't want any maids. As the door closes, the maid expresses her gratitude to Cianna for freeing her. It turns out that she has always wanted to get out of this horrible place, but as there was no other maid besides her, she couldn't. And so she expresses her gratitude for letting her escape now. Cianna is quite confused. At least she should tell her how to take care of things before leaving, right? The maid assures her that there's nothing much and that her priority is just to take care of the princess since they're the only ones around in the palace. And with that, the maid leaves. I feel bad for the princess. Imagine how big that castle is, yet she feels all alone all the time. Maybe that's the reason why she pulls pranks in order to gain some attention. Cianna, on the other hand, is losing her mind. First, there's no co-worker. Second, the princess hates her and there's no clarity on what work she should do. However, she is determined to do what she must do. And to start off, she needs to do a lot of cleaning. But given how big the palace is, she should at least clean what she can for now. And of course, the result is rewarding. However, the princess tells her that she's just doing useless things. Cianna turns around and asks if she wants anything, even calling her a princess. The princess clasps her dirty dress, surprised by how she's being treated like a real princess. No one has ever done that to her. And so to guard her emotions, she tells Cianna not to act all nice because in the end, she's going to leave her once she sees a chance to. Cianna doesn't know how come the child knows what was happening around her with the other maids. A little flashback, in the Imperial Palace, Sol asks Rashid why he put Cianna in the Ruby Palace. But it was a better decision than letting her serve him, so before he changed his mind, Sol delivered the message to the head maid. As Sol leaves the door, Rashid was thinking of bringing Cianna into his palace, but Sol's not giving him any time to think. Reminiscing how Cianna laughed around the time she talked to Magdalena, he couldn't help but to blush at the thought of how cute she was. Also, the Ruby Palace is just nearby, so he hoped that he could meet her soon. I wonder if it's just because he loves everything that is cute or he has fallen in love with her at first sight. Well, no rush. At least he's not harming her, folks. Meanwhile, back in the Ruby Palace, Cianna asks the princess how she found out that she'll soon leave when it was supposed to be a secret. I really can't with Cianna. If the princess is crazy, then she's crazier. LOL. The princess herself is quite confused how direct Cianna can be. But Cianna makes it clear that it's natural for her to work at a place that pays better since she's a maid in the first place. Also, she assures the princess that as long as she's around, she will do her best to serve her. She's the princess's maid, after all. The princess stares at her for a moment, and in response, the princess impulsively kicks a pail away, questioning whether Cianna would still serve her despite her behavior. Despite the chaos, Cianna remains composed, affirming her dedication to serving the princess regardless. Resigned, the princess retreats to her room. However, Cianna soon enters with a breakfast comprising milk and vegetables. The princess expresses her dissatisfaction, craving snacks instead. Cianna gently explains the importance of consuming balanced meals for good health, cautioning against relying solely on snacks. The princess lifts her sleeve, showing her very thin and weak arms, and asks Cianna to stop the act because she claims to be growing up well so far for the age of 10. No! She's only 10, yet she's as skinny as the kids on the streets who only eat once a day! Cianna is aware that no matter how stubborn a child is, one can take proper care of her even if the child makes excuses for not being able to do it. The princess continues to insist that she's perfectly fine, but Cianna can't ignore the potential consequences of her poor eating habits. With determination, she reaches for the princess's arm, assuring her that she's not exaggerating and emphasizing the importance of maintaining good health for the future. Reluctantly, the princess agrees to eat her first meal before indulging in snacks, finding Cianna's behavior peculiar and unlike that of other servants. The following morning, as Cianna opens the windows and serves breakfast, the princess dismisses her. However, shortly after, she changes her tune and demands a proper breakfast. Cianna calmly explains that she consumed the cream bread and grilled chicken items on the menu. The princess is so frustrated as to why she ate those. Cianna explains that she's simply following the royal family's laws. It is customary for the food left over by the royal family to be eaten by the attendants. So because the princess didn't eat breakfast, Cianna ate it instead. Discovering a method to persuade the picky eater, Cianna employs the "if you don't eat now, I will eat it all" tactic, which proves effective in encouraging the princess to eat her meals. Cianna realizes that instilling an understanding of the value of food is important for any child. Cianna experiences it firsthand, but that was just abuse and not in a form of lecturing her. After that, the operation continued, and the princess feels proud of letting Cianna starve all day after finishing her meal with no leftovers. Cianna pats her head and praises her, but she quickly apologizes for touching her without consent. The princess sends her away, but the princess blushes at someone patting her head for the first time. As mealtime tensions subside, Cianna tackles the challenge of persuading the princess to bathe, resorting to inventive tales about imaginary bugs threatening her hair and skin. The princess has no other choice but to take a bath and to brush her teeth. This time, she feels relaxed under Cianna's care. That evening, Cianna expresses gratitude to the princess for her cooperation and offers to read her a fairy tale as a reward for her efforts throughout the day. I love how Cianna knows what she's doing in order to take care of the child well, despite not having the privilege to receive such treatment at a younger age. This is just so sweet. The princess finds it annoying that Cianna keeps accompanying her. She was really annoyed that Cianna was always with her from morning till night. In Cianna's defense, she just wants to read the princess a story. However, when Cianna's about to leave, the princess decides to listen to Cianna's short story. I think Aris has a soft spot for Cianna. Cianna recounts the tale to Aris about a diamond princess who adored sparkling diamonds. The princess amassed a collection of diamonds, adorning herself from head to toe with the precious gems. One day, she learned of a diamond possessed by an evil dragon and resolved to acquire it for herself. Venturing to the dragon's tower, she encountered the formidable creature guarding it. The dragon, captivated by the princess's beauty, declared that she could have the diamond only if she agreed to marry him. Displeased with the abrupt ending, Aris expresses her dissatisfaction. When Princess Aris finally falls asleep, Cianna looks at her while sleeping innocently. In Cianna's mind, she decides not to give up easily as the princess's maid, believing it's what Princess Aris's maid would do. And that duty is to assist Aris in becoming the best version of herself, a strong and healthy princess. Seriously, hands down to Cianna's patience, she surely has a lot to offer. The morning arrives and Aris finds herself in the garden contemplating the changes that Cianna has brought into her life. As Aris gazes at Cianna, a perplexed expression crosses her face. When Aris steps into the soil where various flower seeds are buried, Cianna immediately warns her. Excitement radiates from Cianna's expression as she anticipates the growth of the flowers and the prospect of crafting a bouquet from them. Observing Cianna, Aris contemplates her actions, finding them irritating, and strategizes how to uncover any ulterior motive Cianna may have. As she walks away, Aris notices a hair clip belonging to Cianna lying nearby and claims it as her own, asserting that it was dropped within her mansion. Despite Cianna's pleas for its return, Aris remains stubborn. Instead of returning the clip, Aris attempts to flee, convinced that Cianna won't catch her. However, she finds herself at a dead end, trapped by Cianna's imposing presence. Cianna reminds Aris that taking something that doesn't belong to her is wrong, yet Aris refuses to return the pin and tosses it into the water. Oh no, that pin is so precious to her! Aris, you're being a bad girl! In Aris's dream, memories of her previous maid flood her mind, evoking feelings of fondness and betrayal. She recalls the deep bond they once shared, akin to that of a mother and daughter, until an incident shattered their relationship. Witnessing her trusted maid being punished for theft left Aris speechless and unable to intervene just because she didn't have much power and authority to do so. Following the departure of her maid, Aris grapples with feelings of sadness and betrayal. Learning that her maids had exploited her for personal gain only deepens her pain, compounded by the realization that they all eventually left, spreading gossip about her commoner status. The appearance of Cianna in her dream further unsettles her, foreshadowing another inevitable departure. When she wakes up, Aris is burdened by a heavy feeling in her chest, the memory of her dream lingering in her thoughts. She interprets it as a warning sign, prompting her to take action before becoming too attached to Cianna. It's really unfortunate to witness Aris's behavior. She seems to be acting out of a place of trauma, possibly as a defense mechanism. When Cianna enters Aris's room, she notices the princess's unrest and expresses genuine concern for her well-being, sensing that Aris may not have slept well or eaten properly. Seeing Aris's wary appearance only deepens Cianna's worry. Going back, Aris found herself instinctively embracing Cianna, recognizing the unwavering support and compassion she had shown, despite her past actions. This moment of connection led Aris to acknowledge Cianna's true nature, which was in contrast to her previous experiences. In the embrace, Aris earnestly pleaded with Cianna not to leave, expressing regret for her past behavior, including the incident with the hair clip. Cianna, in turn, reassures Aris of her commitment to stay, graciously accepting her apology. In a pledge of support, Aris vows to assist Cianna in any way she can, determined to make amends and forge a stronger bond between them, even if it means sharing the burden of chores at the Ruby Palace. I'm glad that she's now more open to Cianna. They look so cute together. In this heartfelt moment, Cianna realizes she faces a stubborn and dishonest child, earnestly begging for her to stay. Standing before the child, she makes a solemn vow to nurture and care for her until she matures. Despite Aris's offers and entreaties, Cianna resolves to remain by the child's side, fulfilling her duty as the princess's maid. In the days that follow, Princess Aris surprises Cianna by refraining from pulling pranks and diligently keeping her promises to her. She eagerly assists Cianna in the garden, tending to the plants with care, and later, she willingly helps carry the laundry. Observing Aris's eagerness to learn, Cianna suggests they proceed to the study room, to which the child disapproved. Still, Cianna has to teach her the basics, building her character step by step. However, upon arrival, they discover a lack of essential supplies such as pens and paper. Cianna decides to briefly leave Aris to fetch the necessary items. Upon her return, Aris can't help but notice Cianna's disheveled appearance. Learning that the royal guard has declined Cianna's request for supplies, Aris is puzzled and questions the reason behind the refusal. Cianna explains the need for royal confirmation to obtain the supplies, leaving Aris pondering how to proceed. Cianna considers Aris's suggestion to seek confirmation from Rashid, the crown prince. However, she hesitates for a moment and asks if the child is close to the crown prince. Aris reveals that her mother and the crown prince were quite close to each other. Nevertheless, Cianna decides to take a chance and sends a letter to Rashid. As they contemplate their next steps, the unexpected arrival of the crown prince takes them by surprise. Despite his warm greeting, Cianna and Aris remain in awe of his presence, unsure of how to proceed. I see that's quite quick, Rashid. Do you guys think he wants to see her badly? Even Aris is surprised when her brother promptly arrives after receiving the letter. She remarks that he only needed to send a confirmation letter, but Rashid explains that he came because he believed his sister needed help. He proudly presents a letter required to obtain the necessary supplies. Then, he insists that Aris must offer him tea, considering him a guest. However, Cianna informs him that they don't have any tea to prepare. Undeterred, Rashid reveals the ingredients required to prepare tea directly. It's not obvious that he came prepared. As they enjoy their tea, Cianna can't help but marvel at the unexpected places where they keep meeting. The vastness of the Imperial Palace contrasts sharply with their current location in the Ruby Palace. She feels a twinge of nervousness when Rashid gazes at her, fearing he might remember her. However, any tension dissipates when Aris expresses surprise at the delightful taste of the tea. Rashid concurs, praising Cianna's tea and even mentioning her by name. Cianna is taken aback when the Crown Prince recalls her name, shocked that he still remembers her. Aris, puzzled by their connection, learns from Rashid that he appointed Cianna as a maid in the Imperial Palace and sent her to the Ruby Palace. After finishing their tea, the Crown Prince hands them the confirmation letter they requested. When Aris asks how she can repay him, Rashid insists that the tea suffices for now, but hints at a different form of repayment in the future. Aris suspects that her brother will continue visiting her. I think so too. Next time, he might end up bringing more tea. Before departing, Rashid turns his attention to Cianna, thanking her for the delicious tea. Aris, displeased by his focus on Cianna, demands he leave immediately. Once Rashid leaves, Cianna seizes the opportunity to share her thoughts. She remarks on the apparent closeness between the princess and the crown prince, but Aris insists they're not as close as they seem. Aris reveals that the confirmation letter adds to her debts to her brother, underscoring their competitive sibling relationship. Aris recalls Rashid's ascension to emperor, a time marked by ongoing rivalry among her half-siblings, leaving her feeling isolated and unsupported. She reflects on the neglect she endured as a child and the constant belittlement she faces despite her royal status. Though hesitant to accept the confirmation letter, she appreciates Rashid's willingness to help. Poor Aris. It's not right to belittle someone just because she doesn't have a mother to take care of her. Aris's revelation about her upbringing deeply saddens Cianna. She realizes that Aris never wanted the burden of being a princess. All she desired was a normal childhood, to study, to sleep late, and worry about ordinary things. It pains Cianna to hear that Aris's royal responsibilities overshadowed her desire for a simpler life. Meanwhile, as Rashid rides in the carriage to his palace, he can't shake the memory of his interaction with Cianna. He describes her as a squirrel, noting her cute face and round eyes. In his mind, he concludes that Cianna is the perfect fit for his palace, impressed by her demeanor and capabilities. I hope he doesn't think of her as one of his pets, although Cianna is indeed the cutest maid in the Empire. Despite the distractions of the clean surroundings of the Ruby Palace, Rashid's thoughts linger on his recent encounter with Cianna. His knight responds positively to the inquiry about the palace's cleanliness and notes Aris's improved health. However, the knight hesitates, attributing these changes to Rashid's influence, earning a swift kick to his feet in response. Reflecting on the dynamics between Aris and Cianna, Rashid believes that Aris has finally opened her heart to the maid. When the knight mentions assigning Cianna to Aris, Rashid acknowledges Cianna's equal treatment of people regardless of their status. Furthermore, Rashid muses on their shared tastes, noting that since Aris's birth, she has always shared his preferences. This connection reinforces Rashid's belief in the suitability of Cianna for the Ruby Palace, as her compatibility with Aris aligns with his own tastes and inclinations. Which is true because they really agree on almost everything, except for the way they talk to each other. After that, Cianna and Aris talk about when the Crown Prince will visit the Ruby Palace again. They wonder when he might return and what it could mean for them. Cianna's face lights up with joy when she reunites with Choo-Choo after a long time. They embrace tightly, as if they've been apart for years. Despite a time apart, they fall back into teasing each other like old friends. Choo-Choo then notices the missing hair clip she gave Cianna, lost when Aris threw it, but doesn't bring it up. Cianna recalls when the Crown Prince visited the Ruby Palace again, bringing cake to share along with Cianna's tea. As they sip their tea, Aris mentions that she's paid enough for a confirmation letter and demands her brother find Cianna's missing hair clip at the lake. Without hesitation, Rashid agrees to Aris's request. He summons 100 guards to drain the lake and search for the pin. Choo-Choo is surprised by the Crown Prince's actions, further suggesting how weird his actions were. It's not like he's dying to see her or anything, right? Hours later, Cianna struggled to carry a cart filled with school supplies, but to her surprise, the cart suddenly felt lighter. Rashid had quietly helped her with the cart. She quickly apologized for not being able to recognize him immediately and even made an excuse to leave, pretending that Aris might be looking for her. As they gossip about the Crown Prince's actions, Cianna confides in Choo-Choo that something seems off about him. Choo-Choo is concerned, but knows there's little she can do, as she's nearly an official maid. To her surprise, Aris arrives with a stern expression. She's annoyed that Cianna didn't return to the palace sooner and insists they go inside because she's hungry. Once inside, Aris's curiosity gets the better of her, and she asks about Choo-Choo. Cianna explains that Choo-Choo is also a maid and a friend who has helped her with heavy tasks before. Cianna apologizes for keeping Aris waiting, and Aris responds by saying that she needs plenty of food to be able to lift heavy objects. Aw, I think she's jealous that someone other than her is very close to Cianna too. To their surprise, the Crown Prince returns to the Ruby Palace for 5 consecutive days, each time bringing cake for them to share and enjoying tea made by Cianna. His kindness dazzles Cianna, who can hardly believe it. As they prepare to enter the room, they notice a girl in a black cape following them. However, the knight doesn't notice her presence right away, and the girl quickly hides behind the pillars inside the palace. Later, the girl in the cape kneels down and reports to someone that the prince visited the Ruby Palace again. This girl is Yvette Levewan de Prote, the 5th princess who is the same age as Aris but has a fiery temper. She mentions that Rashid brought a lot of snacks with him this time. Yvette is unable to contain her anger and frustration. She feels annoyed that Rashid is visiting Aris instead of her, despite her higher ranking. Verne Levaiswin de Aran, the 5th Empress, suggests that Rashid's visits to Aris might be out of pity. Just as everything seems to be going well, someone lacking discipline from her mother enters the picture. Yvette's anger fuels a plan to embarrass Aris for what she sees as favoritism. She claims to be acting as a sister, personally teaching Aris a lesson. When Aris reads the invitation letter sent by Yvette for a tea party, she can't help but feel furious. When Cianna asks about her behavior, Aris explains that Yvette always insults her during tea parties. She mentions how Yvette mocks her clothing choices and even questions her status as a princess. I think Yvette might benefit from therapy because she doesn't seem to be in the right state of mind. Upon hearing Aris vent about Yvette, Cianna assures Aris that she doesn't have to worry. She promises to help Aris prepare for the tea party, emphasizing that her duty is to serve Aris. Cianna begins by teaching Aris the proper etiquette of drinking tea, considering it essential for surviving in the Imperial Palace. Patiently, she guides Aris until she masters the art of tea drinking. They enjoy their session until an unexpected guest arrives: the Crown Prince. As they sip their tea, the Crown Prince admires Aris's modesty, attributing it to Cianna's influence. Meanwhile, Cianna notices the Crown Prince's keen gaze and feels tempted to share something, but she hesitates, thinking Aris might not approve. After the etiquette lesson, Cianna presents the dress she prepared for Aris to wear. Aris is amazed by its beauty, a stunning blue dress that complements her perfectly. She asks Cianna how she created such a masterpiece, and Cianna reveals that she repaired and prepared it over many days specifically for Aris. Cianna seemed to have a knack for making everything beautiful. Aris then asks Cianna if she looks good in the dress, to which Cianna enthusiastically agrees. She even compares Aris to a mythical goddess. Aris is flattered by Cianna's words, attributing her beauty to her mother, Lady Rosemary. Aris looks like a collector's doll. The outfit really suits her perfectly. Upon arriving at Yvette's palace, Yvette can't help but laugh at the sight of Aris's carriage, imagining that she would arrive looking like a beggar. Are you sure about that, Yvette? Just wait until you see Aris. Our baby girl leveled up. When Aris arrives at the location of the tea party, Yvette's eyes can't believe what they see. She had expected Aris to appear like a beggar, but she is proven wrong. As the tea ceremony commences, Aris greets Yvette with a beaming smile, while Cianna quietly reminds her not to lose her composure. Yvette, taken aback by Aris's transformed appearance, struggles to believe her eyes. Ha! She did not only meet your expectations, but also exceeded them. As they sip their tea, Aris compliments its flavor, impressing Yvette. She can't reconcile Aris's newfound etiquette with her previous uncouth demeanor. Recalling past tea parties where Aris appeared less refined, Yvette grows increasingly suspicious of Cianna's influence on her sister's transformation. When Yvette's teacup empties, she asks Aris to refill it, observing her with skepticism. Aris executes the task flawlessly, resembling a devoted maid serving her queen. However, Yvette can't accept this change and seeks an opportunity to insult Aris, hoping to undermine her newfound grace. In a calculated move, Yvette intentionally spills Aris's tea, then proceeds to berate her. Aris is taken aback by her sister's unwarranted aggression, defends herself, refusing to accept blame for Yvette's actions. Yvette's irrational behavior escalates, and she threatens to strike Aris, prompting Cianna to intervene. Cianna firmly reminds Yvette of her limitations and asserts that she has no authority to punish Aris without the royal family's consent. Yvette's anger intensifies, and she lashes out at Cianna, further revealing her unstable disposition. Seriously, what's the problem with this kid? As Yvette's hand moves to strike Cianna, a maid intervenes, delivering the blow instead and causing Cianna to tumble to the ground. Her face bears the brunt of the impact, visibly swollen from the force of the slap. After the harrowing ordeal, they hastily depart from Yvette's residence, seeking refuge back at the Ruby Palace. Aris, deeply troubled by Cianna's injury, attempts to tend to her wound, albeit with uncertainty. Recognizing Aris's lack of knowledge in treating injuries, Cianna takes it upon herself to educate her on basic first aid. Aris, still reeling from the events of the day, finds solace in Cianna's comforting presence. When Cianna offers the opportunity for revenge against Yvette, Aris readily accepts, embracing Cianna tightly in agreement. I hope they pay for what they've done to you. You deserve justice, Aris. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Cianna and Aris gaze into each other's eyes, a fiery passion burning in their orbs. In hushed tones, Cianna promises to help Aris claw her way up. But first, she is curious to know why Aris thinks she's inferior to Yvette. To Aris, the answer is simple. It's because Yvette has a mother to guide her, something that she can never have. Hearing this, Cianna places a reassuring hand on Aris's shoulders. The only way for her to compete with that is to gain someone valuable on her side. Someone valuable enough to influence the throne without having direct claim. Meanwhile, at the Crown Prince's palace, Rashid is outraged upon finding out that Cianna was caught up in a conflict between the princesses Aris and Yvette. He's about to punish Yvette's maid when Sol vehemently stops him, urging him not to get involved. His mistake? Saying that Rashid's mother wouldn't want him to do such a thing. Rashid draws his sword in calm anger. It's below the belt to drag his mother's name into this. Sol freezes, a sweat trickling down his face. Lowering his gaze, he apologizes to Rashid, realizing he's overstepped. Back at Aris's palace, Cianna tells Aris that the person she needs to win over to her side is none other than the Empress Dowager, Goldria. It doesn't matter if Aris has never met her yet, because in the grand scheme of things, they can always make an opportunity for them to meet. And how will they do that? Stirring Goldria's emotions by resembling her departed daughter. Years back, Goldria's daughter died from poisoning, caught up in a mix-up of someone's attempt to murder her son, the current emperor. The Empress Dowager barely mourned her loss. Instead, she focused on exacting vengeance on the perpetrators. Evoking the people's sympathy, she strengthened her son's claim to the throne. In the end, she achieved her desired results, but still estranged herself from her son afterwards. Using her daughter's death to make her son the emperor? That's kinda twisted. It must have taken a toll on her son too, so she distanced herself from him as if doing him a favor. On the outside, she may look cold and ruthless, but deep down, Cianna knows she still misses her daughter, which is exactly why Aris must evoke Goldria's buried longing for her daughter. But it proves to be more difficult than they think because Goldria has nothing to do with Aris and the letters she's been writing to her. Persistent as ever, Aris continues to write letters to the Empress Dowager over the next few days. Her letters, however, are ripped, rejected, and thrown away, much to her discouragement. Yet, unbeknownst to her, Goldria has finally given one of her letters a read. Its peach scent may not be to her liking, but its contents catch her attention. Maybe Aris isn't as clueless as she thinks. Aris, on the other hand, is frustrated having to write letters over and over again without receiving a single reply. She thinks that her efforts and hard work are all for naught. That is, until she receives mail that sends her running to Cianna. The Empress Dowager has invited Aris to her palace. The following day, Aris visits the Empress Dowager, and Cianna is shocked at how poised and elegant Aris is acting. Aris, now in her prim and proper princess mode, greets her grandmother and offers her a gift. It's a container of tea leaves she made specially for Goldria. Goldria gazes at Aris's tiny form, her thoughts recalling her late daughter's image. It's just as her maid told her. Aris does resemble her daughter. To top it all off, she even inherited the Imperial family's lilac eyes just like her daughter. She takes Aris's gift, and the two brew her tea leaves to enjoy together. As she takes a sip, she praises its taste, much to Aris's delight. But what's a tea party without any discussions? Just as they did in their letters, both grandmother and granddaughter converse with each other with ease. Not a single air of awkwardness lingering between them. From practicing proper tea etiquette to walking with poise, to even learning how to laugh demurely, Aris's hard work has finally paid off. She trained tirelessly just to squeeze her way into Goldria's heart. As the morning sun hangs higher in the sky, it's time for Goldria to bid her goodbye. Realizing she's taken up much of her grandmother's time, Aris instantly apologizes, her lips quivering in sheepish shame. Little does she know that her words trigger Goldria's memories of her own daughter. Just like Aris, her young daughter apologized the same way, feeling shameful for taking up her time, something that a child shouldn't even feel. Regret always comes last. Crouching down to meet Aris's gaze, Goldria cups her cheeks, gently caressing it. Her thoughts thinking only of one thing. Aris really does resemble her daughter. That afternoon, Aris lies in bed, her thoughts spinning in every direction. Across the room, Cianna watches in silence, concern growing in her chest. She knows how much pressure Aris placed on herself to impress the Empress Dowager. It must be exhausting, keeping up that perfect image just to win her favor. To her surprise, Aris feels no guilt for manipulating the Empress Dowager. Why should she? Goldria never once cared about her in the first place. If she saw the real Aris, the one who's stubborn, unrefined, and burdened with trauma, she wouldn't have looked at her twice. Out loud, Aris curses Goldria, enraged at her. Timidly, she asks Cianna if she did well. When Cianna responds that she did, she can't help but bolt, throwing her arms around Cianna in a tight hug. Oh, our poor baby! All she wants is to be loved. Cianna, on the other hand, ponders on the situation they got themselves into. Having Aris keep a facade just to keep Goldria by her side is nothing short of cruel. But there's no helping it. That night, Cianna heads out to the gardens to meet someone in secret. It's the Crown Prince, Rashid. In all sincerity, she expresses her gratitude towards him, appreciating his help. Apparently, Cianna has asked Rashid for information about the late young princess. With his help, she and Aris were able to put together an image in memory of the late princess, from her fragrance and preferred poems to the tea parties they used to enjoy. Reviving the late princess's memory through Aris became a key to their success. And just as they planned, they were able to evoke some empathy from the Empress Dowager. It was almost as if she couldn't resist being drawn to Aris. Hearing Cianna croak out her thanks, Rashid becomes curious about one thing. Of all the people she could have chosen, why the Empress Dowager? This is when Cianna breaks the truth to him. The plan she roped Aris into was one of the plans she had for herself then. Who would have thought she'd end up in the same empire she once wanted to gain power from? Guilt gnaws at Rashid, wondering if Cianna hates him for eliminating her family. But what he doesn't expect is for Cianna to beam at him happily. How can she hate the man who liberated her from years of abuse? The following day, Yvette is appalled to receive a letter. No doubt it's from Aris. Aris hosts her first ever tea party, and she welcomes Yvette as her guest. Little does Aris know that Yvette has no plans of toning down her hostility. Immediately, she asks that Cianna pour her tea, hoping to find some flaws to criticize her with. But to her dismay, Cianna's movements are perfect. Suddenly, she recognizes Cianna as the rude maid from their last encounter. Determined to humiliate her, Yvette asks for a cane, ready to beat Cianna in the name of teaching her a lesson. This angers Aris, but Yvette couldn't care less. After all, just who does Aris think she is? Yvette wastes no time in insulting her, especially for affiliating herself with the Empress Dowager. She holds the cane to Aris's throat, malice laced in her voice, as she tells Aris how useless her new ally is. To Yvette, a withering old lady like the Empress Dowager holds no power at all. Unbeknownst to her, the Empress Dowager has made her entrance, and she stands behind Yvette, seething as she hears her name being trampled on. Yes, justice will soon be served, Aris. Just let your grandma handle Yvette. Yvette's body trembles with fear, her eyes wide as she gapes at an enraged Goldria. Without missing a beat, Goldria wields her cane, angrily giving Yvette an earful. Just as Yvette planned to whip Cianna, Goldria will do the exact same thing to her. However, Yvette dares to resist, claiming that she's not allowed to harm the Emperor's own blood. Goldria snickers. The child's threats don't sway her one bit. One last time, she commands Yvette to roll up her dress, and the moment she does, she strikes her legs with full force. Still haughty as ever, Yvette retorts that her mother won't let this go. And speaking of which, there's her mother right now. But her bubble is quickly bursted when her mother thanks the Empress Dowager for disciplining Yvette. All color drains from her face when her mother urges her to thank the Empress Dowager as well. Shaking, she lowers her body to bow, horror and shame visible in her expression. Her mind wanders to Cianna. It's all her fault she's being punished like this. Later, in her room, Aris smiles happily for finally getting back at Yvette. But then she pauses, her expression becoming more serious. For a while now, Aris has been wanting to confront Goldria on why she never sent a doctor when her mother was in critical condition. In Cianna's arms, she cries her heart out, finally letting the mask fall off. Lady Rosemary, Aris's mother, was always shamed for a lowly background. But when she became pregnant with Aris, everything became worse. With all the nobles hating her, she could only think of gaining the Empress Dowager's support. But even that proved to be harder than she expected. Goldria wanted nothing to do with her. As she gave birth to Aris, all she could utter was an apology, perhaps knowing too well that she'd succumb to her weak condition. In the present, Aris wants to take revenge on Goldria, adamant for using her for her own gain. With Cianna as her guide, they unfold the next part of their perfectly calculated plan. It's been some time since the tea party, and Goldria is perplexed that her dear Aris hasn't been returning her letters. Could Aris have believed Yvette's words of her just being a useless old lady? Determined to get to the bottom of this, she pays Aris a visit herself, only to find that Aris has been poisoned. Confined in her room, Aris apologizes for not contacting Goldria, stating that she didn't want her to worry. Goldria gently caresses Aris's hands. With a stern and villainous gaze, she plants a soft kiss on Aris's forehead, reassuring her that she'll take care of everything. Oh, it's almost as if she already has an idea who's behind all this. Later that same day, Yvette laughs loudly upon finding out about Aris's predicament. She openly mocks her condition until a maid brings an unusual present from her grandmother, Goldria. Served on a dish platter is a dessert that never spoils. Its meaning? You will pay for your actions, a threat that Yvette immediately recognizes. Yvette is no fool to take the Empress Dowager's warnings lightly. Without needing to be told twice, Yvette and her mother, the Queen Consort Veron, soon leave the Imperial family voluntarily. Ever since that day, Goldria has taken care of Aris personally, much to Aris's annoyance. In the evening, as she's alone with Cianna, she tells her how one day, when the time is right, she'll ask Goldria why she let her mother die. Tears stream down her face unknowingly. Aris may seem heartless to seek revenge, but Cianna is surprisingly relieved that she has some wickedness inside her. After all, no royal ever survives just by being kind. That night, Cianna once again meets up with Rashid. He wants Cianna to go to his palace. Twin maids with short green hair are introduced to the Ruby Palace. Unlike the previous maids, these two absolutely adore Aris, showering her with compliments and making sure to tend to her every need. What's more surprising, Aris adores them just as much as they adore her. Seeing their interactions, Cianna recalls the night she talked to Aris about getting more maids. Shaking her head, Aris firmly opposed the idea, but one look at Cianna's dark circles and sunken eyes was enough to make her consider the idea. Just as Cianna promised, she brings in maids who'll take care of Aris genuinely. The twins, Nini and Nana, are actually Choo-Choo's friends, so Cianna puts her faith in them. Aris, on the other hand, initially doesn't look too keen to have them around, but day by day, she soon finds herself opening up to them. Cianna guesses that even Aris, who's like a little dragon, possesses a soft heart. Shortly after, Cianna excuses herself to go somewhere, but before she leaves, Aris tells her to report if that person tries to pull something strange. Ooh, did she perhaps accept a certain someone's invitation to visit? Arriving in the Crown Prince's palace, Cianna is taken aback to find out that she's actually his esteemed guest for the day. Unfortunately, the Crown Prince seems to be late, and she feels unsettled that fellow maids are serving her like she's royalty. Soon enough, Rashid finally arrives, greeting Cianna warmly. Apparently, he was taking the children out on a walk, explaining his tardiness. But now that he's here, they can finally begin, and Cianna cuts to the chase, asking why he wanted to meet her. Laid back as ever, Rashid comments on how rash Cianna is, but he answers her question promptly. He summoned her to his palace so they can eat dessert together. With a snack in hand, he offers her a bite. She indulges in the cookie's savory and fruity flavor, clearly enjoying it. But when he tells her he made it himself, she almost chokes in disbelief. It turns out Rashid has a knack for making snacks himself, something he enjoys doing for the children. He wanted to do the same for Cianna's visit. His reason? He admits spending time with her is enjoyable. This makes Cianna gasp, totally seeing Rashid in a new light. Ever the animal lover, birds soon swoop down, perching on Rashid's extended hand. Seeing him like this, Cianna can't help but recall a certain story. Cianna tells Rashid a story about the Princess of the Frozen Kingdom, a tale of a princess who couldn't endure the freezing temperatures of her stuffy palace. That is, until a little bird brought her a small piece of the sun. The warmth brought the princess courage, allowing her to venture to the outside world. That story is a fairy tale passed down in Cianna's home country, but she's surprised to find out that Rashid knows about it. Apparently, Rashid once heard about it from someone he met as a child. Although he remembers nothing about her, the tale is the only thing that stuck with him. Later on, Cianna muses to herself, wondering why Rashid knew about that story. It was actually a story she made up as a child, and she only told it to one person. Could Rashid be that person from her childhood? Oh my gosh, this is getting interesting! I'm so curious how they could have met! Time goes by in a flash, and soon enough, Cianna is reunited with Choo-Choo. While they were apart, Choo-Choo had finally become an official maid. Everyone saw the potential her strong build could offer, but unexpectedly, she was scouted to work for Princess Grace herself. Although Choo-Choo is ecstatic to be an official maid, her ambitions still know no bounds, and she tells Cianna about the upcoming promotion exams. When Cianna shows no interest, she encourages her to give it a shot. After all, Cianna is the most capable maid out there. She'll ace the exams for sure. But the best thing about passing the promotion exam? They get to become senior maids with increased salaries. Hearing this, Cianna gives it some thought. Getting a raise would mean she can afford to do things like eating out and buy nice gifts for Aris. Without a second thought, she makes up her mind, determined to take the exam. Weeks go by, and the results are out. Unfortunately, Cianna doesn't see her name on the list. Disheartened, she learns the truth about the exams from the twins. Apparently, those without noble backgrounds are always rejected. This angers Aris, and she offers to have Goldria intervene in such injustice. However, Cianna wants nothing of the sort. Calm as ever, she tells Aris that she'll seize newer opportunities in the future. But unbeknownst to her, an opportunity would come her way sooner than she expected when a maid with short hair offers her a proposal. If she successfully completes a task given by the queen, they'll promote her to senior maid. The Empire has 4 queen consorts, and Cianna can't believe that one of them is asking her for a favor. Although she calls it a request, it's not like Cianna is in the position to refuse anyway. Queen Angelina makes her entrance and greets Cianna warmly. She's surprised to see how young Cianna is. But what amazes her the most is her down-to-earth personality. Admittedly, Cianna has piqued her curiosity ever since she became the talk of the town. A maid so capable that she transformed a neglected Aris and got the Empress Dowager to stick by her master's side. She ushers Cianna into a room, reminding her that whatever she sees and hears must remain in secrecy. Inside, Queen Angelina introduces Cianna to her son, Prince Reis. He's the reason for the queen's favor. She wants Cianna to educate Reis. Of course, she doesn't have to give her answer right then and there, but she asks that Cianna give it some thought. Later, Cianna pays Rashid an unexpected visit, asking him for information about Reis. To her surprise, the only thing Rashid knows about him is that he's turning 12 this year. It turns out Reis was raised in isolation at the Marquis Wilhelm's residence, his maternal relatives. For some reason, only very little is known about him, making the public wonder if there's something the Queen is hiding about him. The public has put so much pressure on Queen Angelina, leaving her with no choice but to announce her son's public debut. But the catch? He'll only make his debut when he turns 12. Rashid is convinced that there must be something wrong with Reis. Otherwise, the Queen wouldn't hide him away. That aside, he tells Cianna there's no need to be interested in him. However, Cianna is undeterred. Rashid's words only fuel her desire to help Reis more. Realizing that there's no reasoning with Cianna, Rashid advises her to be worried about what Aris has to say. Just as expected, Aris is against the whole idea. But as much as she hates sharing Cianna, she also hates holding her back from achieving big things. With a huff, she finally agrees to Cianna's request, but on one condition. She's only allowed to serve Reis for half a day. This is too funny. I get that she's protective, but I don't think half a day is enough. Enveloping her into a hug, Cianna thanks Aris for being so considerate. Nini and Nana crowd around her too, reassuring her that they'll still be with her in the Ruby Palace. And just like that, Aris wholeheartedly comes to appreciate that she's not alone in this world anymore. Cianna visits the Queen Consort Angelina with happy news. She accepts the job offer of taking care of Reis. She promises to do her best despite her lack of experience as a caretaker. Angelina expresses her happiness and gratitude, smiling joyfully. However, Cianna wants to say a few things to Angelina before she starts on the job. In a room with marble walls and luxurious furniture, Angelina holds a paper stating the terms and contract of the job. Cianna must work 5 hours a day for 15 days until Prince Reis' birthday. She must also help Angelina educate her son. If these requirements show satisfactory results, Cianna will be promoted as a senior maid. After stating the requirements, Angelina asks Cianna if she has any more requests. She answers. She adds one more condition, one that will encourage her to do the best she can. Hearing this made Angelina clench her fist on her gown, impressed and appalled. Cianna seems to be making the most out of her deal, isn't she? With everything settled, Cianna asks about the prince. How did he come into such a state? This then brings Angelina to tell her and Reis' past. Back when Prince Reis was born, Angelina's father was happier than words can convey. He expresses his excitement that the Wilhelm Markestate will rise to power because of Prince Reis. But as time passed, a maid informs Angelina that there was something wrong with Prince Reis. He doesn't respond and make eye contact. This alarmed her. Frustrated, her father tries to find a solution. He plans to take him outside the palace and get him treated. Worried, Angelina offers to come with them, but her father slams his fist furiously in opposition. He shouts at her, calling her a fool. She must stay at the palace and assure everyone that the prince is healthy. That's her son! She has every right to be with him! Not long after, Angelina visits her father unannounced. As she enters the dining hall, she is horrified to see her father shoving food down Prince Reis' mouth against his will. But her father remains unfazed with no remorse at all. If everyone knows the prince is a fool at his birthday banquet, it will end Reis' future in becoming a candidate for the throne, marking the end of the Wilhelm Markestate. From that moment, Angelina took matters into her own hands. While her father was away, she took Reis from her father's palace, keeping him hidden in her own palace. She tells Cianna about her worries of raising him and how her father will eventually know Reis is there since he will be attending his birthday banquet. She desperately needs her help. This situation is more serious than what Cianna had thought. Yet calmly, she assures Angelina, telling her that she will do whatever it takes to help Prince Reis. Curious, she asks where the prince is. Angelina then leads her to the room where Reis sits and waiting, playing with a cube. She informs Cianna that he is heavily nearsighted. He only sees what is in front of him. But what's worse is that he's unable to communicate with others. He tries to stand up, but he trips on the cube he was playing with. She wasn't joking about his vision. Cianna turns to Angelina, telling her that the prince is not ill. He was simply born like that. Angelina questions her, asking if he can't be cured. Cianna confirms, however, there is still a possibility that his condition can improve with the help of Angelina. She assures Cianna that she will also do whatever she can to help, and asks how she should help. A few moments later, Angelina exclaims her frustration. telling Cianna she can't do it. She can't take care of Reis on her own, especially without any servants. Cianna carefully explains that she doesn't have much time to tend to the prince. Therefore, she needs to teach someone her methods to help Reis for a long period of time. Who else would it be other than Reis' own mother? She is absolutely right for that. Seeing the worry in Angelina's eyes, Cianna assures her with her kind words, telling her that she must not give up because her perseverance will help her achieve what she truly wants, her son's condition to improve. In the room, Angelina sighs heavily, making it her 19th sigh. She approaches her son, playing with cubes. Seeing his grumpy expression, she hesitates to catch his attention. Reis hates uneven things. He also gets aggressive when people touch his things. Reis glares at Angelina, making her think she made him upset. He looks away, and Angelina observes him. Is he bored? She's thinking of other fun activities to do with him. Should she give him snacks? But he's not much of a sweet tooth. What about talking to him? He dislikes long talks, though. How about listening to music? Then again, he's heavily sensitive to sounds. She then thinks of the perfect idea, painting. Back when she was younger, she enjoyed painting despite always being scolded for painting. Ever so carefully, she takes up a brush, sparking Reis' interest. Soon enough, he begins to try his hand at painting, too. He paints beautiful yellow tulips and a blue butterfly on the canvas. Seeing his artwork left Angelina in awe, calling him a genius. Not many people are born with such artistic talent. What makes it more impressive? Reis has never had any proper painting lessons. However, her smile starts to fade, realizing Reis never looked her way, not even once. Cianna then reassures her. The fact that he didn't throw a tantrum shows that he's comfortable around her. But when Reis suddenly throws his brush in frustration, Cianna reassures her once more. He's just showing his dislike for something in his painting. She advises her to approach him and hug him to make him feel that someone is on his side, something that Angelina obliges to, leaving Reis to pause as he appreciates his mother's embrace. Angelina strokes Reis' hair, who is fast asleep in his bed. She is surprised at how calm he became after hugging him. He must have been very tired. Seeing Reis' slumber, Angelina dismisses Cianna, praising her for her hard work. Back at the Ruby Palace, Nana and Nini excitedly tell Cianna they are going on a picnic with Aris. She planned to take Cianna as well, but seeing her tired face, she'll make her rest. Seeing Aris happy with her new maids, Cianna can't help but feel a little sad, but at the same time relieved. Suddenly, Rashid appears right in front of her, expressing his joy about how he finally got to see her. Cianna asks him if he has something to say to her, but Sol answers that he wants her to brew the new tea leaves that just arrived. Her skills in brewing tea must be exceptional, she thinks. Yes, but he's also trying to make a move on you. As she brews the tea, Rashid signals Sol to walk his tiny pets, hoping he'd take the hint that he wants to be alone with Cianna. Luckily, Sol catches his drift. Alone together, Rashid asks Cianna about Reis' condition. She answers him, saying that his condition is gradually improving and he appears to be happier. He questions her about her certainty, and she confidently answers. She begins to share about her young stepbrother with a similar condition, but worse than Reis'. He lacked comprehension and talent. Unexpectedly, it was Cianna's stepmother's love and devotion that helped her son, leading to his improvement. Hearing this, Rashid asks if her stepbrother is still alive, but she doesn't answer. She repeats herself. She feels nothing for the death of her abusive family. Rashid can only smile. He then asks her if his condition is good enough to make an appearance at the birthday banquet. Back in Reis' room, Angelina is teaching him what to say during his birthday banquet. She makes a deal with him. If he follows, she will give him a kiss and a new set of paint. He happily follows. She praises him, clapping her hands with joy. Cianna praises Angelina and Reis for their hard work. However, Cianna says something that leaves Angelina confused. Cianna explains that Reis' condition is as far as it goes. They only have 3 days left before his birthday banquet. He won't show enough improvement to make an appearance of a different person. Feeling disappointed, Angelina must face the criticism that she will receive. Cianna offers a suggestion to postpone the birthday banquet until next year. Surely that will buy them more time. But this suggestion makes Angelina's stomach stir with anxiety. If they don't show Reis this year, he might not be recognized as a prince. These thoughts are circulating in Angelina's mind until a maid worriedly calls for her. Her father, Marquis Wilhelm, demands to enter the palace. He's after Reis. The Marquis immediately barges in, pushing the maids blocking his way and scolding Angelina for causing trouble at such an important time. He barges in every room trying to find Reis. Angelina pleads for his attention, asking him to listen to her just this once. Reis's condition is improving. However, the Marquis has other plans. He assures Angelina that he found a way to cure Reis, a sorcerer. With confidence, he tells her that the sorcerer can cast a spell to puppet Reis, making him appear like a normal boy. With that, he can become a prince and bring honor to the family. Angelina isn't on board with his plan and pleads with him. She doesn't want Reis to endure such horrible things. This only upsets the Marquis, stating that this is their last hope of debuting Reis. Without warning, he barges into Reis's room as Reis paints. Angelina, on the other hand, clings to her father's leg, being dragged as she tries to prevent him from taking away her son. Oh my goodness, that's your daughter's child, not yours! You have no right to take him away! The Marquis pushes Angelina away and she falls onto the ground. Afraid, Reis calls out for Angelina, his only way of asking for help as he is being taken away by his grandfather. Seeing her son call out for her made her realize that she had always been an obedient daughter to her father. She never went against him, but it is her child that's at stake right now. She charges at her father, grabbing Reis and demanding that he will stay with her. Her father argues, but she stands firm. He lifts his hand in an attempt to slap her, but suddenly Cianna barges into the room, the Imperial guards in tow. The guards quickly seize the Marquis, and he asks help from Angelina, waiting for her to order the guards to stop. Instead, she orders them to take him away and lock him up in the dungeon. Angelina thanks Cianna for bringing the guards in during the catastrophe, but now there's a more important question to answer. What will she do now? With steady and motherly resolve, Angelina answers. She plans to protect her son from her father. In the dungeon, the Marquis threatens the guards. He vows never to forgive his daughter along with the maid Cianna. Out of nowhere, Cianna appears. She carries a message from Angelina. He is no longer allowed to enter the palace without Her Majesty's permission. As for his grandson, Angelina will be raising him herself. That's right, put him in his place. Hearing this message makes him burst into flames, demanding Angelina to face him personally. But Cianna warns him that if he lays a finger on the wife of the Emperor and the fourth prince's mother, the queen consort Angelina, he will commit treason. She advises him to obey Her Majesty's request, to which he reluctantly agrees, signing the contract bearing Angelina's requests. He then thinks that someone has turned his daughter against him, Cianna. After a while, Cianna informs Angelina that the Marquis has left the palace. Angelina also joyfully informs her that she'll be canceling Reis's banquet as she needs to protect her son from the people. Time passes by, and Angelina sits blankly in front of three women, confronting her about the rumors surrounding Reis. She knows she needs to quell the rumors as soon as possible. She hesitates for a moment, but after a while she shows them her son. She tells them that he's not a mad prince, but rather a special one. A noble lady chimes in. If that is so, there is no need to cancel his banquet. After all, it's not like she plans to keep him hidden forever. Angelina clarifies that all she wishes is to protect her son, even if it means abandoning her royal duties and his right to the throne. Hearing this, the women decide to help Angelina. They'll take care of quelling the rumors, earning them Angelina's gratitude. Later on, Angelina shares her worries to Cianna, but Cianna assures her that despite everything that's happened, her father is still continuing to support her. As for the rumors, they'll die out over time. Once more, she thanks Cianna for her help and promises to grant all her requests. Happy to be of service, Cianna bows to Angelina. Aris runs to Cianna and wraps her arms around her, expressing her relief that she's finally back. The very next day, Aris wears a brown and red dress with her hair braided into two sections. She's all ready for their outing in a private place of the palace. She runs around, having fun until she accidentally bumps into Reis, who's painting. Both of them lock eyes, and Aris asks him who he is. Suddenly, Angelina appears, and Cianna follows shortly after. Aris connects the dots. This is the queen consort Angelina. Angelina thanks Aris for letting her borrow Cianna's time. She informs Aris that she promoted Cianna and the twin maids, Nini and Nana, to senior maids. Hearing this, the twin maids thank Cianna and Angelina non-stop. Aris and Reis have a conversation of their own. She looks at his canvas and asks him what he likes to draw. He likes to draw beautiful things. Boldly, Aris then asks him to paint herself because she is beautiful. Aris, you're getting ahead of yourself. Meanwhile, in the Crown Prince's palace, Rashid asks about the Emperor's return. It's been half a year since he took over court meetings on his behalf. Sol tells him that his father is still recuperating, but luckily the environment of where he's at is improving his condition. Relieved, Rashid walks out to breathe some fresh air of his own. Back to where Aris and Reis are, Rashid is surprised to see Angelina and everybody else. He glances at Reis, looking at his sparkling violet eyes, and Reis stares back. Angelina apologizes on Reis' behalf, explaining that he doesn't know Imperial etiquette yet, therefore he can't greet the Crown Prince properly. Rashid, however, is curious as to why Reis still keeps staring at him. Angelina answers that Reis wants to draw him like how he draws beautiful things that he sees. He happily asks Reis to draw him, eager to see his younger brother's talent and skills. Cianna serves tea to Rashid, who wonders what's so great about Reis' painting. To make him understand, Cianna gives him a piece of paper and a pen and asks him to draw. He draws Cianna, but it comes out as an ugly maid, leaving her offended. He shares that drawing is not to his liking, and she feels relieved to know he realizes it. Rashid questions her relief, to which she explains that it's best to focus on what they're good at. Hearing this, he smiles at Cianna and congratulates her on her promotion. Did he come all this way just to congratulate her? As usual, Rashid showers her with compliments for achieving something that isn't easily attained, especially from a foreigner of a defeated nation. She expresses her gratitude to the Queen Consort as it was Her Majesty that granted her promotion. He smiles hearing her reply, finding her adorable. A sudden urge comes over him. He wants to hold her and stroke her hair. But before he could, Sol informs him that the painting is finished. They look over, and a little boy who traded his normalcy for an artistic gift shows his extraordinary artworks. Days later, back at the Ruby Palace, Aris adores Cianna's new green uniform. She looks like a luscious peach between the green leaves. The twin maids are looking good too. Worried, Cianna asks Aris if she'll be all right while she and the twins are away for training. Aris reassures her, sharing how the Empress Dowager invited her to her palace while they're away. This comes as a relief to Cianna, and shortly after, she informs Aris that they must get going. Before they leave, Aris sports a sly grin, promising Cianna that she'll never let her leave her again. Soon, Cianna and the twins arrive to the place of their training. In the training rooms, Megan, the head of the senior maids, greets Cianna and the other maids. She informs them about the 3-week training period and how tasks are strictly divided based on their rankings. Senior maids, or the intermediate level maids, are in charge of managing the lower ranking maids, while the superior maids serve closer to their master. Suddenly, a senior maid from the kitchen calls out for Cianna with her background. She informs Cianna that she is in charge of managing the kitchen ingredients. If she fails to do her job, she will report exactly how it happens. Cianna looks around the kitchen, seeing other maids working. There must be a method or a system that keeps things running. She introduces herself, but the air feels heavy and the other maid's eyes glare through her soul like snakes. Then a familiar face appears. It's Jean. Oh no, how did that bully end up working with Cianna again? It turns out before Cianna arrived, Jean had already spread rumors about her to the other maids in the kitchen. She paints Cianna as a sly person who used underhanded tricks to become an intermediate-level senior maid. Back then, Jean tried to win over the new maids' favor by giving them gifts. Due to this, they respect and obey her. Now, she plans to throw dirt on Cianna's image before coming in for her training. To her, a worthless girl from a defeated nation could never qualify to become an official maid in a palace. Back in the kitchen, Cianna notices the attitude and etiquette they've given towards her. She asks for minimum respect. After all, she's the senior maid that will be supervising them. To her dismay, they all refuse. Jean points her finger at Cianna, stating they will show no respect for a girl who got promoted dishonorably without fair means. Cianna tenses up, clenching her fists on the kitchen table. Unfazed, Cianna threatens to fire everyone, albeit in a casually joyful tone. She tells them how she became a senior maid through the recommendation of a noble figure. If they argue, then she'll have no problem tattling to the noble figure about the mistreatment shown towards her. Of course, this will only cause difficulties and problems for them and other maids. They wouldn't want to do that, do they? Knowing the consequences of their actions, the maids bow to Cianna, showing their respect and apologetic expressions. This, no doubt, upsets Jean. Without delay, Cianna focuses on her duties, asking the other maids about the supply of ingredients and deliveries. After a long morning of working, Cianna sees their tired expressions and cooks them a meal. Their eyes sparkle upon seeing bacon, eggs, and meat as their meal. They couldn't contain their joy, as maids usually eat leftover food. The maids quickly realize how kind Cianna is and wish to work with her in the main palace. Hearing the other maids talk about Cianna makes Jean furious. She warns them that they're being fooled by her facade and they shouldn't forget how she threatened to fire them, but they couldn't care less. Jean walks out of the kitchen, frustration in her every move. But sly as ever, she then makes her way to the office of the attending senior maid who supervises their kitchen. I just know she's gonna tattle to the senior maid. She's been such a sore loser ever since from the start. Cianna has been working in the kitchens for a week now, and it isn't all rainbows and sunshine for her. In fact, just last night she was scolded by the supervising maid, Om. Om was furious that Cianna had been sharing food with the lower-ranking maids. If this continues, the lower-ranking maids might start disrespecting the intermediate-level senior maids. When Cianna argues otherwise, she threatens to report her for insubordination. Still, Cianna doesn't let all these hurdles dampen her spirit. She and 2 other maids come in early to start their breakfast delivery operations, but to their horror, the storage room is overrun by rats. They immediately leap into action, driving the rats away and cleaning up. But it's no use. The food supply has already been contaminated. Just then, Jean barges in, bringing Om with her as she tattles about the earlier rat situation. Om burns with fury, reprimanding Cianna and holding her accountable for such mishaps. As a matter of fact, she isn't letting this slide. She threatens to report Cianna to the head of the intermediate-level maids. Behind her, Jean can't hide the smug look on her face. She's sure that even Cianna won't get away unscathed. But to their shock, Cianna takes full responsibility. If Om is finished giving her an earful, she has urgent matters to attend to. Breakfast in the palace would soon be prepared, and considering their food supply is left with nothing, they'd all get in trouble. This snaps Om and Jean out of their power tripping. Can't they just pick out the food the rats didn't eat? Excuse me? You want to feed the royal family food leftovers from a rat infestation? Girl, you can't be serious. Preposterous, Cianna thinks. Rats carry bacteria and diseases, leaving the whole storage room contaminated. If they deliver those cleaned-up leftovers, who knows what kind of disaster would follow? Om panics and she tries to argue. If they don't deliver food to the other palaces, it would also be a serious problem. Luckily, Cianna knows just how to remedy the situation. And just how does she plan to do that? With the Crown Prince's help. Rashid makes haste to greet Cianna despite the early hour of her unannounced visit. She wastes no time in telling him about the rat incident in their kitchen. Without a second thought, she asks that he sell her the food supplies from his palace, leaving Rashid bewildered. The cost to buy the food supplies in his palace is sure to be hefty, which makes Rashid wonder how Cianna plans to pay for all of it. Exhaling a deep breath, Cianna admits that her salary alone won't be enough to cover for everything. So if he'd allow it, she'd like to pay it bit by bit. Sure, it would take years, but she's not one to run off on a debt. Rashid clenches his fists in response. Why can't Cianna just ask him for help? He's more than welcome to do so. Helping in his own little way, he agrees to her request, but he won't take money as payment. The next time Cianna comes to see him, he'll be sure to tell her what he'll ask for as compensation. With the food supplies taken care of, Cianna hurriedly goes back to the kitchen and starts putting everyone to work. After all, they still have to supply food to the different palaces before breakfast. From behind her, Jean scowls in frustration. Just how did Cianna acquire enough food and ingredients in such short notice? This must be some kind of sorcery, she thinks. Nope, she's just hardworking and capable. She's not a jealous wench like you who'd sabotage others. After a hectic morning, everyone finally slumps in exhaustion as the last deliveries are fulfilled. Although tired, a wave of relief washes over them, and it's all thanks to Cianna. Even they're curious how she pulled off such a feat. Cianna tells them the truth. Well, half-truth, saying how she received help from an important person. But when she refuses to give them a name, their curiosity is immediately piqued. Everyone begins praising Cianna's important person, realizing that whoever it is must really be powerful and generous. Meanwhile, from behind them, Jean sweats with nervousness. If Cianna has someone that powerful on her side, she'd be in big trouble if Cianna finds out she's the culprit behind the incident. As if reading her mind, Cianna looms over Jean, certain that Jean committed the crime. Jean immediately becomes defensive, but Cianna is quick to call out her trashy act. How was it even possible for Jean to report the incident to Om when they had already managed to clean up everything when she arrived? Jean continues to deny everything, calling it baseless accusations. But deep down, she knows Cianna won't do a thing. Otherwise, everyone in their kitchen might get caught up in trouble. Cianna wouldn't want that, would she? But what she doesn't expect is for Cianna to see right through her. With menacing eyes, Cianna reminds Jean about the important figure she's close to. If word gets out that Jean tried to harm the royal family by messing with their food, one can only imagine the consequences. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Jean panics. But even in desperation, she's still so entitled, totally expecting Cianna to just forgive her. To her horror, Cianna refuses. Instead, she wants to know who else is involved. Just as she expected, Jean is in cahoots with Ohm. The two keep their heads low as Cianna decides what to do with them. Normally, she'd just let it go, but for the sake of those who worry about her, she won't allow Ohm and Jean to trample all over her like a doormat. In a voice laced with careful calculation, Cianna holds both Ohm and Jean accountable. She tells them about the cost of the food she bought to replace the ones they ruined, an amount that far surpasses their salaries. If they want Cianna to keep her lips sealed, then they'll have to take responsibility for their actions and cover the expenses. Now that's what I call justice being served. The three are able to settle internally, but unbeknownst to them, a maid reports everything to Megan, the head of the intermediate-level senior maids. Learning all this, Megan refuses to sit idly by, showing Ohm and Jean no mercy. The main culprit, Jean, she's getting demoted back to being a low-ranking maid. On top of all that, the cost of the damaged groceries will come as a salary deduction to both Ohm and Jean. The whole situation quickly spreads like wildfire, and even Rashid catches wind of it. When they meet again, he praises her for her judgment and resolve. However, he's no fool. He knows Cianna probably feels bad about the whole thing. Just like Rashid suspects, Cianna admits feeling awful. It's as if she played a part in crushing Jean's dream of becoming a senior maid. But despite her feelings, she doesn't regret her decisions. After all, at the end of the day, it was to teach Jean a lesson. Surprisingly, Rashid admires Cianna's ability to stand her ground, making her blush a deep red. Clearing her throat, she asks what he wants in return for helping her, but his request leaves her stunned. He wants her to go on a date with him. Rashid shares that he has some errands to run, and because he's afraid to go alone, he wants Cianna to come along. Cianna, of course, doesn't refuse, but none of this still makes sense to her. Initially, she was worried about leaving her training, especially since she didn't ask Megan for permission. But when Rashid reassures her that it'll be fine, she decides to take his word for it. He's the crown prince. What could go wrong? As the two arrive downtown, Cianna can't help but feel anxious about Rashid going out without a disguise. Knowing he's next in line to the throne, he could become anyone's target. Pulling him close, she drapes a cloth over his head, but their proximity leaves both of them flustered. The two continue walking their merry way when all of a sudden, Rashid admits that it's his first time coming to town like this. Apparently, he was always confined inside the palace as a child, and when he grew older, he only ever knew the battlefield. Hearing him muse about his life, Cianna realizes how similar their lived experiences are. Trying to lighten up the mood, she asks him about the town's festival. It turns out they're hosting the fireworks festival, and it's the reason why he wanted to come. After all, as much as he loves cute things, he also loves things that shine and look beautiful. Rashid, are you still talking about fireworks or describing Cianna? We see right through you, you know. They're about to keep going when a strange sound echoes. It's Cianna's rumbling stomach. She flushes with humiliation, but luckily Rashid doesn't tease her about it. Instead, he offers that they both grab a bite before the festival. But what he doesn't expect is for Cianna to crave some beer. She reminds him that as cute as she may look, she's still an adult, which means she also gets the occasional desire to have a good cold drink. After a while, Cianna becomes immersed in her drinking. Although its taste isn't to her liking, she still finds herself ordering one drink after another. But unlike her, Rashid isn't having any, much to her curiosity. Apparently, he doesn't want to drink because he wants to take care of her. This makes Cianna's heart race, and in her drunken state, she caresses his face and pinches his cheeks like a baby. But the cherry on top? She plants a soft kiss on his nose. The following morning, Cianna jolts awake in the maid's quarters. She's late for training. She makes haste to get ready, but just when she arrives at the kitchen, all the other maids tell her that it's a special rest day. It turns out the Crown Prince had made an urgent announcement giving all the maids a day off. Soon, the room erupts in squeals as everyone gushes about how kind and caring the Crown Prince is. Snapping themselves out of it, the maids hand Cianna a bowl of hot soup. They have no idea why the Crown Prince sent everyone soup, admitting that they would have liked it better if it were meat. Piecing everything together, Cianna quickly realizes that Rashid did all of that just because she was drunk last night. Ugh, what a man Rashid is! He's totally head over heels for our homegirl Cianna! As she enjoys her soup, her attention is shifted to Jean, who makes an entrance. Unlike her usual self, she looks apologetic, sheepishly sharing that she'd be starting her training again tomorrow, back to square one as a lower-ranking maid. To say that she doesn't resent Cianna would be a lie. But that's only because of how she is as a person. Petty. In all honesty, she's sorry for causing everyone trouble, her words carrying the weight of her guilt. Unexpectedly, Cianna offers her words of comfort, proud of her efforts to change her ways. Hearing this, Jean can't help but shed tears. She never knew she needed such affirmations. That night, Cianna is excited to sleep without a day's worth of exhaustion, but suddenly her mind refreshes her with the memories of her drunken state. More importantly, she now recalls being so handsy with Rashid. Come to think of it, she could always play the I was drunk card. But deep down, despite being drunk, she knew that she could get away with whatever, anything, and it's because Rashid always lets her do as she pleases. Either way, she still decides to apologize. Unbeknownst to her, just like her, Rashid finds himself unable to sleep. His mind just can't push away the memory of Cianna planting a soft kiss on his nose. His heart races once more, and his curiosity gets the best of him. What expression will Cianna sport when she faces him again after such an incident? Just thinking about it makes him blush uncontrollably. Elsewhere, a maid follows strange sounds into the food storage, only to find it ransacked. Cianna, in turmoil, sincerely apologizes to Rashid for her drunk actions. But when Rashid asks her to retell in detail what exactly it was that she did, he finds himself appalled at her incomplete recollection. It turns out, Cianna only remembers pinching his cheeks like soft dough. Puzzled, Cianna wonders what else she did. But what Rashid does next completely knocks all the air out of her lungs. He plants a soft kiss on her nose in an attempt to remind her of what she did the night before. Ah! I can feel my own cheeks burning over here. You guys are too sweet. A few days later, Cianna receives a report about the food supply in Princess Grace's palace. The maids say that food's been disappearing at night. Cianna finds this odd because Princess Grace's palace didn't hire more maids, so the portion should be enough. Could someone be stealing food? Trying to get to the bottom of the issue, Cianna herself visits Princess Grace's palace, determined to investigate. She's greeted by a maid who validates her suspicions of a thief. Though it can't be an outsider since security is tight around the palace. The maid's suspect? A big, tall, buff maid named Choo-Choo, much to Cianna's shock. Inside, Cianna and Choo-Choo reunite happily. As Choo-Choo serves her tea, she reflects on the situation. Her friend isn't the type to steal food, so it can't be her. Cutting to the chase, Cianna tells Choo-Choo about the situation, but for some reason, Choo-Choo isn't surprised. In fact, she beads with sweat, clearly knowing something about it. This is when Cianna realizes Choo-Choo knows who the thief is. Gently, she coaxes Choo-Choo into letting her in on what she knows, promising to be lenient. At the end of the day, she just wants to make sure they never steal food. Choo-Choo smiles. There's just no winning against how perceptive Cianna is. With a deep breath, she tells her about it from the beginning. Choo-Choo was personally scouted to serve Princess Grace, and naturally, it was her honor to do so. Princess Grace, with her fair skin and well-maintained figure, is always assisted by her maids, adamant to keep their princess beautiful. An hourglass body doesn't come without sacrifices, though. Princess Grace always eats so little, making Choo-Choo worry. The next few weeks, the maids begin noticing missing food from the storage room, and Choo-Choo became determined to catch the thief. One night, she catches the thief in the act, but to her shock, it's the princess herself. Well, that was unexpected for someone so poised and elegant. Caught red-handed, Princess Grace panics. Frustrated and humiliated, she orders Choo-Choo to keep her mouth shut. Nobody should know she did such a thing. It would be a scandal if someone found out. Hearing this, Cianna realizes there's no need to investigate further. However, she still feels uneasy, and that's because she knows the other maids are suspecting Choo-Choo as the culprit. To her surprise, Choo-Choo couldn't care less, as long as she's protecting the princess. In fact, ever since the incident, Princess Grace has become more fond of Choo-Choo, making other maids jealous. For some reason, she kind of anticipated their backstabbing. Only one thing bothers Choo-Choo, though. The amount of food disappearing is no joke. But could a princess with such a slender figure be able to eat that much? A dark expression makes its way to Cianna's face, albeit momentarily. She tells Choo-Choo that nobles have their own ways of keeping in shape. In truth, she knows something's off about the princess's actions, but she decides not to bring it up. Shortly after, she bids her friend goodbye, making sure to invite her for a treat if she comes to the palace where she's assigned, much to Choo-Choo's delight. The days that follow go by with no issues, or so she thinks. One day, she receives news that Choo-Choo's been caught as the thief. Cianna races to Princess Grace's palace, but the maid who welcomed her before now becomes hostile towards her. She's convinced that Cianna let Choo-Choo off the hook just because they're close friends. Her words become more sharp as she tells Cianna the reality of the situation. Choo-Choo wasn't just caught for stealing, but for tampering with the princess's food. Cianna pleads with the maid, asking to be let in. She needs to hear Choo-Choo's side of the story. However, the maid waves her off, telling her that it's too late. They've already locked Choo-Choo up. Anger boils in the pit of Cianna's stomach. She knows the maids wrongfully accused Choo-Choo. In fact, they're even counting on her removal from the palace. Jealousy is a powerful drive, anyway. Cornering the maid, bloodlust glimmers in Cianna's eyes, determined to put an end to such injustice. If the maid won't hear her out, then she demands an audience with Princess Grace herself. Of course, the maid doesn't allow it either, but Cianna walks away unfazed. She'll find a way eventually. You have no idea of how cleverly determined Cianna can be when she wants something. The next thing we know, Cianna is already meeting Princess Grace. Cianna greets the princess, but Princess Grace wants to get down to business right away. Admittedly, Cianna's note alarmed her, stating that she knows who the real culprit is. Curious, the princess orders her to tell her who it is. Cianna doesn't mince her words, truthfully admitting that it's none other than Princess Grace herself. This angers the princess, insulted by Cianna slandering her in her own palace. Ever so sly, she denies everything that Cianna claims. After all, how could she be the culprit? With so much food gone, then the thief wouldn't be in such great shape. But to her horror, Cianna knows all about the secrets of maintaining such a slender body. Among royals and nobles, some resort to extreme means like purging, forcefully inducing vomit to regurgitate everything they consume. Methods like that don't come without side effects, though. Forced vomiting damages the throat and the remnants of bile slowly erode the teeth. But the worst thing? It drives a person mad, making them lose control and become addicted. A person then begins craving for more food, purging again and again. Eat, purge, it becomes an endless cycle. It may maintain a nice figure, but definitely not good health. Princess Grace hangs her gaze low, almost as if ashamed of her methods being laid bare. Curious, she wonders how Cianna knows such a thing. To her surprise, Cianna tells her it's because she too went through the same thing in the past. Holding out her hand, Cianna gently proposes a deal. The princess doesn't need to admit being the culprit, but instead, all she has to do is free Choo-Choo, who was wrongfully imprisoned. In exchange, Cianna will help her overcome the painful cycle of purging. Soon after, Choo-Choo is let out to have an audience with Princess Grace. But when she enters the room, she's shocked to see Cianna inside. Gesturing to Cianna, Princess Grace confesses that it was Cianna who had come to ask for help, desperate to have her friend released. This makes Choo-Choo tear up, and she throws herself in Cianna's arms, grateful for her help. Seeing the two reunite so wholesomely, Princess Grace reflects on the situation. When she first heard the maids pinpoint Choo-Choo as their subject for investigation, she let them be, convinced that they wouldn't charge her guilty. After all, what evidence would they find when Choo-Choo isn't even the culprit? What she didn't expect was that it would quickly escalate. At the end of the day, it was all her fault for being a coward. She couldn't even stand up for Choo-Choo, the person who protected her secret. For some reason, I don't resent her. I understand where she's coming from, but still, it's no excuse to let her maids get away with imprisoning Choo-Choo. Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!